Everyone thinks they know Jason Statham. The cold stare, the relentless fists, the man who never flinches, the embodiment of control and invincibility. That's what the world sees. But beneath that unshakable exterior, there was a night, a moment, a fracture that no one ever got to witness. The night Jason Statham almost fell apart. And not just a little stumble, not a minor crack, a collapse so deep, so raw, that it threatened to erase everything he had worked for. It didn't happen on a movie set. It didn't happen during a stunt gone wrong. It wasn't something the tabloids could spin into an action-packed headline. No, it happened in the quiet, in the shadows, where no cameras were rolling, when the armor was stripped away, when he was just a man staring into the abyss of his own life. Imagine someone like Jason, disciplined, hyper-focused, physically unbreakable, suddenly facing the weight of betrayal, loss, and doubt. That night, the world that had always relied on him to be the unshakable one was nothing but silence. And in that silence, he questioned everything. The beginning wasn't sudden. Years of pushing forward, of denying feelings, of bottling pain, all of it piled up like a storm building over the horizon. He had learned to compartmentalize early, to train his body until his mind followed, to transform anger into energy, frustration into precision. But there's only so much a person can hold inside before it breaks. And the breaking point, that invisible line, finally arrived. It wasn't one single act that caused it. It was a sequence of betrayals, moments of heartbreak, the people who should have been anchors turning into ghosts. And for the first time, Jason felt powerless. You might think that for someone like him, weakness doesn't exist, that he would fight or run or throw himself into the familiar rhythm of chaos and action to escape it. But this wasn't escapable. Not with a gun in his hand, not behind the wheel of a speeding car, not even in the rehearsed fight scenes where he looked untouchable. This was internal, intimate, a collapse that no stunt could fix, no script could rewrite. He sat alone, in a room filled with shadows, and felt the walls closing in. The man who had stared death in the face countless times suddenly stared at himself, and for the first time, he didn't know if he would survive. And then the memories hit like a tidal wave. Every moment he had suppressed, every relationship he had ignored, every small fracture he had brushed aside, they all came rushing back, leaving him dizzy, gasping, feeling every ounce of vulnerability he had spent decades hiding. The public never saw him cry. The cameras never caught the nights he stared at the ceiling, wrestling with guilt and regret. The world never knew that behind that iconic, unyielding persona was a man who feared he was failing, not just as a hero on screen, but as a human being. It's hard to explain the moment he realized he had to either succumb to it or confront it. Part of him wanted to let it consume him, to vanish into the night, to disappear from the world that demanded strength without pause. But another part, the part that had been forged through years of discipline, through pain, through sweat and blood in gyms and stunt sets, whispered a quiet truth. You are stronger than you think, but only if you choose to face the collapse instead of running from it. He didn't arise immediately. There was no cinematic montage, no immediate revelation. It was messy, raw, almost unbearable. He allowed himself to feel it fully. He let the grief, the anger, the shame, and the fear flood him. And in the mess, in that surrender to vulnerability, he found something unexpected. Clarity. He understood that his strength wasn't the absence of pain. It was how he dealt with it. That the man the world idolized wasn't someone without cracks, but someone who learned to walk through them. That brutal night changed the trajectory of his life. Every decision afterward, every film, every fight scene, every character he played, it carried a piece of that collapse. That emotional fracture became a lens through which he saw the world, a secret engine cowering the intensity he brought to every role. And while audiences saw the invincible Jason Statham on screen, he carried the memory of that night with him, a reminder of mortality, fragility, and resilience all at once. It's tempting to romanticize it, to say it made him stronger, that it's what created the action star we worship today. But the truth is grittier. He didn't emerge as a superhero. He emerged as a human, scarred, shaken, haunted by the knowledge that even someone as disciplined and hardened as him could fall apart. And maybe that's why his performances feel so real, so visceral, because underneath every punch, every chase, every cold stare, there's a man who has known fear, loneliness, and despair, and chose to keep moving anyway. And here's the thing, it's not just about Jason Statham. It's a story that whispers to anyone who has ever felt unworthy of their own strength, anyone who has ever cracked behind a mask of perfection. It's proof that resilience isn't born from being unshakable, it's born from breaking and choosing to rise. Every time you watch him on screen, remember this unseen side, this hidden collapse that shaped the legend. Because if a man like Jason Statham can be stripped to his most vulnerable self and still rise, what excuse do we have for not facing our own shadows? So next time you see that cold stare, that perfect fight scene, remember the night the world never saw. The night Jason Statham's emotional fortress crumbled. The night he discovered that true strength isn't in hiding pain, it's in embracing it. And now as you hear this story, you're not just watching a legend on the screen, you're witnessing a human being who stared into his darkest hour and refused to blink. Follow the journey, because there are more hidden truths, more untold battles, and more raw human moments behind the faces we think we know. And once you start seeing them, you'll never look at heroes the same way again. The nights after that collapse were the hardest. Not because of fame or money, or the projects waiting on his desk, none of that mattered. In that quiet, suffocating darkness, what mattered was the echo in his own mind. Every memory of betrayal, every lost friendship, every moment he had denied his own feelings replayed like a relentless film. And he realized something terrifying. He had spent his whole life running from emotions, from vulnerability, thinking it made him strong. But real strength came from sitting in that storm and not turning away. He started small. First, it was just acknowledging the pain, letting it exist without judgment. Then it was calling the people who had hurt him, or writing letters he never sent, or facing memories he had buried deep. Each act was like a tiny weightlifting session for the soul, invisible, grueling, and transformative. And slowly, ever so slowly, he felt the raw edges of his emotional collapse begin to sharpen into resilience. The public would never know this side of Jason Statham. They would never see him trembling with doubt before a camera, never see him lie awake for hours wondering if he was enough. They would only see the result, a man who could throw a car through a wall, who could fight with impossible precision, who could stare death in the face and blink last. But the truth was far more human, far more relatable. That strength was earned in the silence of the night, in the shadows where no one was watching, where every tear and every sleepless hour became a brick in the foundation of his legend. And in that rebuilding, something unexpected happened. He began to understand people differently. Empathy, which had always seemed like a weakness to him, became a tool, a way to connect. He noticed small gestures, the hidden struggles of friends, the unspoken fears of colleagues. The collapse had cracked open something in him, a door he didn't even know existed, and through it, he saw the world in a more human, more nuanced way. It's funny in a way. The man who seemed invincible on screen, who projected power and control, learned that true power comes from accepting fragility. He started carrying that understanding into every role, every fight, every scene. That is why his characters feel so alive, because he knows pain intimately. He knows fear. He knows what it's like to be exposed, naked, trembling inside, even when the world thinks you're untouchable. And yet, despite everything, Jason never stopped moving forward. The collapse didn't break him permanently. It reshaped him. It gave him depth,
authenticity, and a silent fire that fuels every punch, every chase, every stare. And here's the truth, the thing most people will never see. It's not the triumphs or the stunts that define him. It's the nights he didn't give up, when he faced himself in the dark and chose to rise again and again until the world had no choice but to call him unshakable. And now as you hear this, think about the masks we all wear. Think about the moments you hide behind strength, toughness, or perfection, when inside you might be crumbling. Jason's story isn't just about a celebrity. It's a mirror. It's proof that every human being can face their collapse and still rise, stronger, wiser, and more alive than before. And maybe, just maybe, it's a reminder that the moments we fear the most